Texas A&M and Auburn get set to do battle down in College Station on Saturday afternoon. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game between the Aggies and the Tigers. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips. He's Cole the Bear Thompson. We appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. As always, make sure you hit that like and that subscribe button. We are inching ever so close on YouTube to that 25,000 subscriber mark. We can't do it without your love and support. Also, guys, check out our friends over at FANDUEL because, as always, we are brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. FanDuel.com/SECU to join today and get you started with a $250 deposit bonus when you win your first $5 bet. Once again, FanDuel.com/SECU to get that $250 deposit bonus today. It's the Aggies and Tigers. Texas A&M and Auburn get set to do battle on Saturday afternoon at Kyle Field. We are here previewing, predicting, and breaking down this game. I am Chris Phillips. Helping me do so, as he always does, my co-host, colleague, partner in crime, one of the best in the business, Cole the Bear Thompson, and a fellow Texan, by the way. Bear, what's going on, man? Appreciate you taking the time. Excited to talk this matchup with you.
Yeah, apparently I hate the Aggies. Apparently I hate Auburn. So this is going to be a wonderful matchup for me to be able to break down. Bottom line is that I think Texas A&M is playing like a top 10 team. You have a bye week. You have the momentum after beating Notre Dame. How do you respond in this matchup? Years pass underneath Jimbo Fisher. Signature win. Find a way to be a letdown a couple of weeks later. Can you finally evade that underneath Mike Elko in year two? And for Auburn, bottom line is that Auburn impressed me. It wasn't an elite performance. Their offensive line gave up 10 sacks on the day. They gave up the safety at the end of the matchup. Some of those were on design runs. Auburn also should feel a little bit slighted because of what happened with the penalties and what happened with the ill-advised calls by the officiating out in Norman, where they maybe should be coming in this matchup undefeated. And so you got a lot of pent-up aggression. You got a lot of pent-up anger. You certainly feel like that you were shafted. How do you let that out? By making sure that you also play a consistent, confident, and non-penalized version of football. I came away very impressed with how Auburn was able to respond against Oklahoma. And that's a great Oklahoma defense. There were faults in this Texas A&M defense that could make this a battle to the finish line. And if Jackson Arnold shows us what we saw last week, Barcel Reed shows what we saw 2 weeks ago, could be one of the most underrated quarterback battles we have seen this season so far.
Yeah, Bear, in a loaded Week 5 slate, no doubt. This one feels like it's kind of flying under the radar, admittedly. Yeah. Do you feel the same? Like a kind of an underrated matchup? Maybe it's because Auburn inexplicably dropped out of the top 25, and we haven't seen Texas A&M play in a few weeks, but this one might be one of the more entertaining games of the day, and certainly high impact for both sides with A&M and Auburn. Big picture goals for them in the 2025 season. Again, Bear, this game a 2:30 kickoff on ESPN down there in College Station, Texas, at Kyle Field. Per our friends at FanDuel, A&M is a 6.5-point favorite. The over-under is set at 52.5. Bear, really competitive series between these two. A&M leads the all-time series 8-7. And the last meeting, who can forget last year, Auburn won that game in thrilling fashion down on the Plains, 43-41 in overtime. Bears, we dive in this game. You mentioned the bounce back, the bounce back for both sides, I think is really interesting here because how you respond from a win is just as important as how you respond from a loss. So obviously Auburn coming off the Oklahoma game, there's a lot of questions they want to answer. I think you're right. A lot of pent-up aggression. They'll want to take it to somebody, beat up on somebody else. Certainly here comes Texas A&M. But Auburn wanting to get their get back. Like after you lose a game like that, you're stoked. You can't wait to get back on the field. We just need to redeem ourselves. For Texas A&M, and I think it's a little bit different because you've had the bye week, so you've had a lot of time to process it, but you're coming off a massive win against Notre Dame. I mean, huge win, right? And that game was crazy and thrilling. And again, I do think the bye week really, really helps that you've had some time to catch your breath, process what happened. But how does A&M follow it up? You're right, Bear. We've seen this. And then, I don't know that this is the old Texas A&M, but, let's face it, you are someone, you know this program, you know the ins and outs, you know the history. You're right. This is typically where they would stub their toe in the games they're supposed to win, in the games that certainly not going to call this a gimme. But again, in the game that you show up as an Aggie and you say, this is a game we should have, that's when A&M, it seems, does some of the most random, inexplicable stuff and sometimes loses games like these. So the bounce back for both sides for different reasons. How much strides has Texas A&M made since the Notre Dame game, cleaning some things up, especially on the defensive side. How are they able to build off that? And if you're Auburn, how do you bounce back from a really tough showing and a really tough result against Oklahoma? That's going to be really interesting to me in this matchup.
A&M had a week to prepare for this game because they were on the bye. There was a lot of things that they had to clean up, I think, for that Notre Dame win. Yes, you get the win. Nate Borgature back front of the pylon of the end zone. Marcel Reed, 4th and goal, got to have it. You're excited and you're impressed with how you were able to respond. And your offense really was setting the tone. But this is a Mike Elko defense. A Mike Elko defense should never be giving up 400-plus yards of offense to any opposing team, ever. And there still are some faults when it comes to the front seven. You still are allowing far too many yards after contact. Jeremiah Love rushed for 94 yards. Jadarian Price ran for 68 yards. You gave up 4.4 yards of play on the ground between those two. You had 3 rushing touchdowns allowed. You allowed CJ Carr to build a repertoire in the passing attack. Eli Rowden had 85 yards. Malachi Fields, Jaden Greathouse, they all were able to connect downfield for a couple of explosive plays. So those are some areas to where you had a week to respond, you had a week to prepare, you had a week to look at the film, and also take a look at early on, what are some things about Auburn that makes them tick? But also for Auburn's standpoint, Auburn showed you that it's more than just a rushing attack offense. They were able to get the ball out efficiently. You had a couple of good plays downfield. And honestly, if you just get the passing attack going with Jackson Arnold ever so slightly, and I mean, if you just be able to get Cam Coleman and him on the same page, where the deep ball is downfield, A&M secondary can be a fault at times that allows you to lose those one-on-one battles to where connectivity is on pace. He's running to the end zone for 6 points, and it can happen very easily. So A&M, from the standpoint of this being a moment where you had 2 weeks to mentally, physically prepare, get your mind right, get your body right, and play in front of your hometown, your crowd, 102 screaming acts, ready to go to war for you. You can change the tone. 4-0, getting like you're trending in the right direction before you face off against Arkansas on a road trip, before you face off against Florida. You're trending upward to be a team that can actually look like this is a new era of Aggie football. In my opinion, for Auburn, can you do the things that you did right last week while getting back to the rushing attack? Again, A&M has had a fault at stopping running backs. Jeremiah Cobb is the second best running back in terms of yards per play this season in the SEC, only behind Ahmad Hardy. He has been phenomenal. Do you have to throw the football? And when you do throw the football, can you make accurate, decisive throws if you're Jackson Arnold and be able to make sure that you constantly are putting the offense in a position of success? You don't always need to go for the deep shot, but if you do take those deep shots down the field, are you able to connect with Cam Coleman? Because I'll tell you what, Mario Craver has been, without a doubt, the best receiver that nobody talked about throughout the offseason. Cam Coleman still is the best player on either sideline in this game. You get him the football and you isolate him on a one-on-one matchup. If that ball is there, he's coming down with it. The only question afterwards is, will the defender of Texas A&M be able to keep him in bounds and make the stop at that point? Or is he taking it to the house for 6?
You led me into, Bear. That is something I'm really excited to watch in this game. Both of these teams and the pass catchers they feature. Cam Coleman, Eric Singleton on the Auburn side, and you also mentioned Perry Thompson and some of these other dudes. On the A&M side, the Casey Concepciones of the world, the Mario Cravers, the Terry Bussies. I mean, they have got an elite group of wide receivers. And this offense has been clicking at a high rate because of it. Can't wait to watch both these battle of elite pass catchers, if you will, do work. The Texas A&M defense, Bear, a lot to clean up after the Notre Dame game. But then you look at the Auburn offensive line, you look at the way they were essentially bullied in that game against Oklahoma, giving up 10 sacks in that football game. Cassius Howell is a dude who's going to have a chance to feast in this game. Yeah. I mean, he might get 4 or 5 sacks by his darn self if they don't clean things up on the Auburn offensive side. Talk to me about, I'm curious your thoughts. That matchup in the trenches, I think, so pivotal for this one. Jackson Arnold has taken care of the football. He's done a great job. But if they can't do a better job of protecting him, I think that streak will end on Saturday. I think they'll be able to get the football off him a couple of times if they're breathing down his neck, if that Texas A&M defensive front, that pass rush can be living in his back pocket all day long.
It can, but at the same time, you still got to make sure that you've cleaned up some things. It's Mike Elko year 2 of defense. One thing that we heard throughout the entire offseason leading up to that Las Vegas Bowl losses, thank God I never have to see that secondary again. Well, that secondary still is allowing over 200 yards per game. They've allowed 6 touchdowns in coverage. They're ranked 67th in the country. Total points allowed per game. Texas A&M is 103rd at 28.7. Rushing yards allowed per game, 139. And again, you're going to have a healthy Damari Elston for this matchup. You're going to have Jeremiah Cobb. Cobb averaged 10.6 yards a play against Oklahoma's defense. So he had his explosive runs and got his due at times. He could be able to get to that second and third level of the defense and force a linebacker or force a defensive back to have to drag him down after a gain of 11, gain of 12. That's going to be really beneficial. The mobile quarterback thing is something that you're going to have to wonder about. We haven't really seen that for Texas A&M. Utah State didn't run the football extremely well with its quarterback. UTSA didn't run this football extremely well with Owen McCown. You saw some rushing, not a lot, but you saw some rushing with CJ Carr. Again, negative 15 yards. Not really much to go off of. So this is going to be an actual quarterback where there are design runs that if the offensive line creates avenues and holes up the middle to allow him to scoot on through, and then he uses that athleticism, can he get into the second and third level of the defense to at least set up positive traction? That was something that I think was exceptionally done well by Brent Venables' defense to neutralize one of the best things about Jackson Arnold. They were able to blitz. Offensive line lost a lot of one-on-one battles. And because of those were design runs, they were counted as sacks because it was from behind the line of scrimmage, which is another thing that's really beneficial, I think, in favor of Texas A&M. This is going to be one of those games where if I am an Aggie, I want to see who's going to be my secondary pass rusher. Because Cash Patel, he's a dude. We know he can work. Is it going to be Torian York from the middle? Is it going to be Albert Regis? Is it going to be Rylan Kennedy? Is it going to be one of these freshmen? Who is going to be that extra pass rusher to when we face off against Florida, when we go on the road and face off against Arkansas, when we have to go down to Austin and take on Texas? We know that they're going to neutralize 18, but they still have to be prepared for the other guy. That's going to be really, really, really beneficial, I think, in this matchup for Texas A&M. And could end up being the reason why, like you said, you force Jackson Arnold to have to throw the football and throw downfield. You may finally get that turnover that you've been waiting to see for the first 4 weeks.
And Bear, how about the other defensive front? I mean, what Auburn's done in their front seven, been really good. I'm curious to see, are they able to stop the rushing attack in this game? Obviously, Texas A&M features one of the best, I think, in the conference. You were extremely complimentary of it coming into the season, and I think they lived up to the hype. Are you able to slow down the rushing attack and get after Marcel Reed? Force him into some mistakes. He's been very good this season, but I think the battle of both of these front sevens is going to be really, really intriguing. Auburn has been one of the best in the country this year, getting after the quarterback, getting in the backfield, getting those big tackles for losses. So both front sevens going to have a say in this game, no doubt.
What'll be interesting is, can they stop the explosive plays downfield with the wide receivers? And I'm not here to say that they were not able to do that when it came to the play with Oklahoma last week. Again, we could talk about the penalty that should have been with the Isaiah Satenga touchdown. The officiating already has come out and made a statement. Regardless of what Ben Arbuckle says, again, touchdown counts. I'm not going to sit here and say Auburn deserved to win the football game because of officiating. Kind of screwed you over. You shot yourself in the foot a million times otherwise. You're allowed to be pissed off. But what I will say is you did a good job of securing a couple of really, really, really good blanketed coverage of plays. And you also put yourself in a position to where any explosive play that was called against Deion Burks or Isaiah Satenga, it was called back because of an illegal block, or it was called back because of holding penalty. So you put yourself in a really good position at that point. You also gave up over 400 passing yards to Baylor. And Baylor's weaponry is good. This wide receiver duo that we are seeing currently in College Station of Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver may be the best in college football when it's at its peak. So how are you going to be able to slow them down? Remember, Auburn can win the football by running it as much as they want. And that might be a benefactor in their place. The reason why Baylor at least made it interesting going into the fourth quarter, even though you had the big kickoff return for a touchdown, even though it never really felt like that Auburn was going to lose the football game, the score did indicate it was a one-score possession at times, was because of their inability to stop the deep shots down the field. An area that we constantly continue to see Marcel Reed be successful is on vertical passing sets across the deep shot. And he's got two receivers that can do that. And he also has a good tight end in Thor. He also has another good tight end in Nate Borkature that can go ahead and get those easy yards. You also got to factor in Terry Bussey. And you also got to factor in number 3, Bethel. Both those guys could easily make plays on the intermediate part of the field that constantly gives Texas A&M the ability to keep momentum on its side. And that has been their bread and butter. Can they slow down the rushing attack? Potentially. I mean, they were able to do that for Auburn. I mean, they were able to do that against Oklahoma. We have not seen a very good balanced rushing performance by Texas A&M up to this point. A team that I thought was going to be one of the best rushing units in college football this year. You could slow down Le'Veon Moss. You could slow down Reuben Owens. You could slow down Amari Daniels. That is not going to be shocking to me. But once you take that away, you also have to take away Marcel Reed's ability to connect downfield. Because so far, that has been the difference in a lot of games this year. It was the difference in the UTSA game. It was the difference in the Notre Dame game. And these wide receivers, they're winning at the line of scrimmage. They're able to get off, and they're able to make plays. If you couldn't do it against Baylor, you've had 3 weeks to go fix that problem. You did so against Ball State, and for the most part, you did so against USA. Can you do it against Texas A&M and against this wide receiver core?
Certainly going to be a key question in this football game, Bear, that I think they're going to have to answer. That being said, let's get right to it. Let's lock in some predictions. Let's lock in some picks for this football game. Would you like the honors? You want me to start when it comes to this one?
You were going first on this one.
All right, I got you. I appreciate that. Yeah, this one to me screams it's this game's going to be weird. I think this is a very underrated matchup. It's flying under the radar when you look at the big picture slate, week 5. There's so many elite matchups. This is one that I'm really excited to watch. Texas A&M, again, coming off the bye week, huge win against Notre Dame. But you're right. This is kind of where you're like, hey, don't stub your toe here. You're at home. You're favored. You should win. Don't stub your toe. This is a new Texas A&M under Mike Elko, but I want to see that happen. Approach this thing the right way, win a game you're supposed to. For Auburn, I think it's a huge opportunity. Bounce back the right way. Some things happened in that Oklahoma game. You can argue you should have won the game. You got jobbed. You got robbed, whatever. Fact of the matter is, the game ended how it ended. You lost the football game. But there are things to like about Auburn. I'm not selling on my Auburn stock coming out of the OU game. There's things to really like about that Tiger squad. Jackson Arnold's playing really, really good football, taking care of the football. You know about the wide receivers. And I think your defensive front is one that you can win with on a weekly basis. Going into College Station is going to be really, really tough. Kyle Field's going to show up, show out. It's going to be a raucous environment. And this A&M offense, man, just the way they are playing and the way they are clicking, I trust them to continue to do so. I think you're going to continue to see the downfield passing game from Marcel Reed and these big-time weapons on the outside. I think you're going to hit some deep shots, have some big plays. I think the rushing attack is going to be able to do enough. Auburn's defensive front, like I said, that's a group that really excites me. I think they can make a difference in this football game. But I think A&M, they're clicking on all cylinders right now. They'll have a good game plan, extra week to get ready. And I do think the streak comes to an end, Bear. I think Jackson Arnold finally turns the football over. I think he'll be running for his life. Yet again, I trust Mike Elko and company. When you have a deficiency like that, I think they'll be able to expose it. I think A&M touchdown pulls away late to cover. I like A&M minus 6.5 here. Give me Texas A&M 31, Auburn 21 at Kyle Field. Big win for the Aggies to keep the good times rolling. Tough loss for Auburn, but it's a tough ask too going into this place to get the win. I know that's not going to make the locals down there in the Plains feel any better, but I do have Texas A&M winning this game. Double-digit point victory. Weird back-and-forth game. Aggies score late to cover. 31-21 final.
I think you bring up a lot of good points. I think the main thing is this a new culture underneath Texas A&M with Mike Elko? Because again, bye week, not a lot of people to wonder about what you could show up in the next week. You were talking point of the town in college sports because of what you did on the road in South Bend. Ultimate letdown spot. Seen it time and time again for these Aggies. Is this a time period where finally things are changing in your favor and you're not having the self-inflicted wounds and you're not putting yourself behind the sticks against inferior competition? And that's not a shot at Auburn. What it says is that A&M was able to go get a signature win on the road, and then they were able to kind of come back home and find a way to make the same mental mistakes that we've seen for years on end in the SEC. This is an opportunity for Texas A&M also to kind of catapult itself into that tier 2 conversation of SEC teams. And then Mike Elko, year 1, all about establishing a foundation. Year 2, building that culture up. For Auburn, what this comes down to is, can you run the football efficiently? Can you trust what you got in your backfield in Damari Alston and Jeremiah Cobb and Jackson Arnold that's going to be able to allow you to eventually get a Jay Bateman and Mike Elko defense to have to play in the box, kind of start spreading some things out, and then you take your shots downfield. You go find a Cam Coleman. You go find a Horatio Fields. You go find a Malcolm Simmons. You find an Eric Singleton. You get some design runs in there that gets A&M's offensive line at the line of scrimmage that forces a mental mistake. Those are things that you're just going to have to look at. And then Jackson Arnold. How do you build off last week? You made some really smart throws. Oklahoma did a good job of keeping everything in front of you, but you still were able to get the ball out to the right receivers. You didn't panic a lot. Your offensive line puts you in a position to where you kind of had to force some things and you still made it work. Can you do that again? And then when you get those opportunities to find a Cam Coleman open downfield, you're willing to take that shot. And it's right on the money. It's right there. Marcel Reed is going to be, I think, the X factor in this game. Because if Auburn's done such a good job of stopping the run for every team so far this season, making offenses one-dimensional, that it can be a problem. And Marcel Reed is able to throw it into double coverage, and he will have those turnovers. He's shown you he can make those mistakes. He can. I just think that right now it's easier to trust Marcel Reed over Jackson Arnold when it comes to that deep ball. That's what this comes down to, in my opinion. I need a throw that's going to be right on the money for my superstar wide receiver to come make it in stride and find his way into the end zone. It's so much easier to see what 10 has done versus what number 11 has done. I think if A&M can keep everything in front of them, they can take away Cam Coleman's ability, and then you're just going to have to trust the second level of your defense to make some plays. I think this is going to be a very high-scoring game. I think that this is going to be a matchup that ends up going to where we're not going to be impressed with either defense. I think, once again, you feel really confident about where Auburn is offensively trending upward. But if you're asking me for one throw, gotta have moment, I trust Marcel Reed almost more than anybody else in the country at this point. Because what he has shown me, being able to build that rapport and connectivity with Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver, very few quarterbacks have done. I'm taking Texas A&M to win, but I'm taking Auburn to cover. I'm going to take the plus 6.5 in favor of the Tigers. I think this is a 3-point swing. I'm going to go 34-31 final score. I think the Aggies pull it out. They start off the season 4-0. It's not a good look for Auburn. You're now sitting at 3-2. Momentum is now trending downwards. And remember, at this point last season, they lost a game for the second straight week on a 4-game losing streak. How you respond is really important. The difference between a loss last year and a loss this year, you showed up. You were lifeless in that last game. You have an offensive identity. It just isn't enough to beat Marcel Reed, who's playing with the hot hand right now and may punch himself into the conversation for a Heisman Trophy.
There you have it. So we're both going with the Aggies to find a way to get it done, outlast the Auburn Tigers. Guys, you agree with us? Do you disagree? Texas A&M or Auburn? Who comes out on top Saturday afternoon in College Station? Guys, it's going to do all for us. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Before we do get out of here, do want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel, because as always, we're brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. And maybe you agree with me. Maybe you agree with Bear. Whatever it is, place your bets over at FanDuel. FanDuel is getting you ready for the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. New customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet $5. If it wins, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app. You can build parlays, bet player props, ride the live lines. Whatever your style, FanDuel's got you covered. The NFL season's almost here. The only question is, are you ready to play? Visit FanDuel.com/SECU to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Once again, FanDuel.com/SECU to get in on the action today. Guys, it's going to do all for us. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. As always, make sure you like and subscribe. We're inching ever so close to that 25,000 subscriber mark on YouTube. We can't do it without your love and support. Also, check out the podcast wherever you get podcasts. Follow along on social media and check out our website, secunfiltered.com. For Cole the Bear Thompson, I'm Chris Phillips. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we will catch you all on the other side.